Patrick here. In this video, we're going to be talking about basic math in Python, how to make a longer script in Python, not just enter one line in at a time in the interpreter, and also we'll introduce you to variables. So to get started in this lesson, if you're on OS X, as before, simply go to the top right of your screen, click the Finder, and then type terminal. And then when you see terminal, either click on it or press enter. And what should come up should be something that looks a lot like this. If you're using Ubuntu, you want to either type Alt Control T or look in your menu for terminal. Okay, so once you have your terminal open, you want to type Python to get started talking to the Python interpreter. So Python, Python, and press enter. All right, and so now you're seeing your Python prompt. So let's do some quick math with Python. This is very simple stuff, and you'll see that this is where you'll see Python really shines with some very simple syntax. So let's just try 1 plus 2, 3. Okay, straightforward. 2 times 5, 10. Great. How about 22 for a slash to divide? 2. 11. Perfect. Let's combine some of these things. So let's do 10 times 3. Notice those are in parentheses. Divided by 4. Right, notice that that is a whole number. So normally this would be 30 divided by 4, but obviously would be 7 with 2 left over. But unless you add decimals to the numbers, Python will leave out the remainder. So for example, if we did 10.0 times 3.0 divided by 4.0, we'll get a much more precise answer. So bear that in mind when you're using math in your programs. And these numbers with zeros in the end are called floating point numbers. And these, of course, are integers. So, and all these different kinds of numbers, integers and floats, are what in programming you call data types. And in the previous lesson, we used a string, which looks something like this, some text in quotes. I'm new to Python in double quotes. So that is a string. So that's another kind of data type. And in Python, you can move pretty fluidly between these data types. So for example, you can type float. So that's a function, float, which transforms any number you give to it into a float. So float 4. So notice 4 is an integer. It doesn't have a 0.0 at the end. You get 4.0. So it transformed 4, the integer, into 4.0, the floating point number. And you could also do int 4.0, and it's going to transform it into an integer instead of a floating point number. And you can actually transform, you could even transform a number into a string. Yeah, and then notice it has quotes around it. Now it's the data type of that number is a string. So a couple of other things to know. So Python obeys order of operations. So if you remember back to school, that means exponents come first. So if you do 3 times 3 to the 5th power, and the double asterisks are that's raised to the power of. So 3 raised to the power of 5 plus 2. So it's going to do this first, and then add the 2. Okay, and same if you do 2 plus 3, 5. You get the same result. And if you want to change the order of operations, of course, you can use parentheses like I showed you before. And there are a few other special signs. So for example, if you want to show the remainder of a number or of an operation, then you can do, say, 15 divided by 7. So the remainder of that would normally be 1, right? But that's not shown when you do the division. So if you want to show the remainder, you do a percent sign, which is called a modulo in this context. So 15 mod 7 modulo, and 1 is the remainder. Okay. So you don't need to memorize all of these up front, but they're all useful to know. So so far we've been working in the Python interpreter, which appears in our command line. So this is useful for doing a quick operation or a one-line program. But when you really want to write something, when you want to write something longer, it really becomes necessary to use a more complicated program. And so while we could enter our program in one line at a time in the interpreter, of course, that's very slow and not very effectual. So if you're new to Python and you don't have a text editor that you know and you feel comfortable with, then Python comes with a text editor called idle. And if you're on OS X, that idle is very likely already installed on your computer. So if you just do a quick search for it, and if you're on OS X, you want to go into the top right and just type idle, I-D-L-E. I-D-L-E. It looks something like this. It should say the version number of Python. If you can't find idle that way, try typing Python instead. And what idle is, it's a very simple text editor. When I say text editor, I mean text files like you would manipulate using a program such as TextEdit in OS X or Notepad in Windows. And just as a warning, programs like Microsoft Word or LibreOffice won't really work for this because they'll add in invisible characters that you won't actually see. So you need just a plain text editor such as Notepad++, Text Wrangler, or idle, which I would recommend for a beginner. And there are many text editors available out there. But idle is quite useful for a starting Python programmer. It'll highlight some of your, say for example, it'll highlight your functions. Print hello. So it'll highlight, when you close a parenthesis, it'll highlight it for you. It'll highlight your functions in different colors. So it'll give you some information that will help you as you're programming, and it'll help you debug your programs. So what we're looking at here is very similar to what we saw in the interpreter. So you have your arrows and your prompt. It's waiting for text. So you have your arrows, your prompt, and it's waiting for you to enter a program in one line at a time. 2 times 2 is 4. So this is pretty much exactly the same as we saw in the interpreter. So to create a longer program, what we're going to do is go to File, go to New, our new file, and now we have a nice blank text file where we can write our programs. So let's write our first multi-line program. All right, X, so the letter X equals 2 plus 2. And then in the next line, let's do X times 4. All right, and let's see what happens when we run this program. So let's go to Run in the top here. And what we want to do is run our program, run module, and you can also just hit F5 to run the program, which is what I'll probably be doing from this point on. So it's okay. It's going to ask you to save, because it's a text file. It wants you to save first. Just hit OK. Let's do test.py. Yes. Okay, and now it's run our program and nothing came out. So why is that? So when we run things in the interpreter, so if we ran that program in the interpreter, X equals 2 times 2, Actually, I had 2 plus 2, but it should be the same result. And then have x times 4. So that should come out to 2 times 2 is 4. X times 4 is 16. Okay, we have 16. Okay, so that's fine. So the difference between, we're already seeing a difference between running a script, a text file, and talking directly to the interpreter. So in the interpreter, you don't have to type print in order to get something out. So you don't have to type print 2 times 2, though you can. But in your actual scripts, you're going to have to actually type print if you want to see results. So let's run our program again. And this time let's put print, open parenthesis, and then on the other side, we'll close the parenthesis. So we're putting our x times 4 inside an open parenthesis and a closed parenthesis, okay? And I'm going to hit F5 to run the program, but you can also go up here and press run. All right, F5. It wants us to save, okay. Okay, we've got our program again, and this time it actually did print out 16. So remember, when you run from a script, you're going to have to actually use the word print, otherwise you're not going to see your result. And just to quickly explain how the x works, so in Python, the x that we're using here, that is a variable. And we could really use anything for that, so we could type foo, F-O-O, and if we replaced foo down here, save the program, and then run it, then we would get the same result, okay? So any set of letters or numbers, you could do foo1, can be used as a variable name. But it's better to use a descriptive name that sort of gets at what the variable represents, which makes it easier to remember. That's good practice. All right, so in this lesson, we've learned basic math in Python and how to create a multi-line script using idle. And we've also covered the very basics of using variables. So thank you very much, and hope to see you in the next lesson.